Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today's phrase is to be strapped for cash, and that means to be a little bit low on funding or a little bit short when it comes to finances. Let's look at some examples. It's actually very clear. So let's go over a few examples. I'd love to go out for dinner today, but I'm a bit strapped for cash. So maybe next week after we get paid. John had to borrow money from his parents because he was strapped for cash when he lost his job. Sarah said, I'm strapped for cash until payday, so I'll have to wait and buy those concert tickets after I get paid. John decided to sell his car because he was strapped for cash. I'm sorry, but I can't lend you any money right now. I'm a bit strapped for cash. Now, it's unclear where this phrase came from, but I can tell you that it's very, very common. And we do use it all the time when we are a bit low on funds. It's not a way of requesting money from someone. It's just a way to say that you can't afford doing something right now. As we all know, British people are known for being a little bit frugal. Sometimes they like to save money instead of spending it. So when they say they're short or strapped for cash, it doesn't mean that they're poor. It might just mean that they don't want to touch their savings. To be strapped for cash is very common. It's not the kind of thing you would use in business English, although it may be reported that some companies are strapped for cash if they're not performing so well. Now, just to make it a little bit clearer, something in our media today is saying that many British people are actually strapped for cash. And because of that, 1 in 7 of British people admit to saving a few pounds by reusing tea bags. Now, that's not such a bad thing, reusing tea bags. I'm sure some people do actually do that. I mean, I wouldn't. But it says here, skint British people. Skint is another word of saying, I have no money. If I say, oh, I'm skint, it's the same as saying I'm strapped for cash. It's saying there's no money available. It says here, skint British people are hanging tea bags on the washing line so they can use them again. Now, just to clarify that, it says, skint British people are hanging tea bags on the washing line so they can use them again. And the washing line is usually where you dry your clothes. So here in the UK, and I think in some parts of America as well, once you do your washing, you can hang it out on the line to dry in the garden. So we have 4 poles set up in the garden, and you can put out your washing there. So when you hang your washing out in the garden, you have little clothes pegs, and you use those to hang up your clothes so they don't fall down. And it's saying here that some British people do the same with tea bags to save money. They dry them out and reuse them. Now, for me, that sounds absolutely disgusting, really. Um, it says here more than 1 in 7 people in the UK put tea bags outside to dry so they can make another pot of tea with them and save cash. Women are the most likely to recycle the bags, with 16% confessing compared to 14% of men. And they're saying it's most common. Another word for common is rife. It's most rife among over 55s, with a fifth of the people in the survey reusing tea bags multiple times. And this was a survey done by vouchercodes.co.uk. And it says here, it seems the old trick of squeezing every last bit out of the bag could be making a comeback. Yeah, it's a little bit strange that I don't think that I don't think I would do that. Just tea bags and tea make me uncomfortable because it just looks kind of dirty. So once a tea bag's been used, the color of it's brown. Oh no, it just goes in the bin. But as you know, some British people are a little bit frugal. They don't like to spend too much money. So I can understand why they're doing that. Well, today's phrase is strapped for cash, and we're just talking about some examples of how you can use that. It is true that we do hear a lot of people saying that they're strapped for cash, so it's an incredibly common phrase to use. I love a good cup of tea, I have to say. I do like tea. I've got decaffeinated tea bags, which I use. And I also have loose tea for making tea in the teapot. And I also have normal tea bags. But making a cup of tea in the UK used to be a ritual. It was something which took a little bit of time. Of course, now people don't usually use teapots, they just shove a tea bag in a cup. But in the old days, or at least when I was a little boy, there was a real ritual. You had to, first of all, heat the teapot by filling it with hot water and leaving it, then rinsing it out, then adding the tea, then adding more water, then stirring it, then leaving it, then pouring a little bit out. It was never ending. It was never ending. They had all these ways to make a nice cup of tea. Now, someone who's not strapped for cash, of course, is Prince Harry. And a judge in America is due to decide if he broke some regulations on his US visa application paper. The ex-royal entered the US in 2020 and lives with his wife and 2 kids in California. But in March, a US judge ordered the Department of the American government that deals with these things to provide more information about why his immigration details should be kept secret. And they're trying to work out if he actually lied on his application form about his drug use, because when you go to live in the US, one of the questions they ask you is, have you used recreational drugs in the past? And of course, as we all know, Harry has. That's been widely reported in our media. And some people in America want to see how he answered that question on the application form when he applied to get into the US, because some people are thinking that he probably lied about it or he received some special treatments. And of course, they're going to use this in the future to try to get rid of him. This apparently is all being looked at by the right-wing Heritage Foundation, and they're seeking the release of the documents to find out whether he told the truth or not. One thing that really upsets me about our media generally is it's not really about what you do, right or wrong, it's about who to blame. And another thing that's been happening here that I've told you about before is this post office scandal, where many post office workers went to prison for crimes they did not commit. And there's a huge public inquiry currently going on in the UK. The post office, of course, is strapped for cash because it's not performing well anyway. And they're now uncovering that the post office seemed to know that there were problems with the computer system, but didn't admit that knowledge. And many people, of course, went to prison and were accused of stealing money, leaving them strapped for cash. Many of them had to take out serious loans in order to repay the post office. That's an ongoing thing here in the UK, and every day new revelations are coming out about who knew what, both in the government and in the post office. So that's quite scary. That's going on at the moment. So that's some stories from the UK. Prince Harry, who certainly isn't strapped for cash, at least not as far as we know. British people who are strapped for cash, hanging out tea bags so they can reuse them. Sounds awful, doesn't it? And just one more story to make you aware of from the UK. It says here schools could be forced to close because they don't have enough pupils. Oh, really? That's a big change. Last week they were saying that they were building schools that were too small. So this one is saying over £1 billion in funding could be lost by 2030 because of falling numbers of students. And the Education Policy Institute is saying many schools are struggling to stay viable. Viable means economically viable. It just means whether they can make ends meet, because they don't want to be strapped for cash. And it says here, falling birth rates, the pandemic and Brexit have all been blamed. And the union, the National Association of Head Teachers, said schools are already strapped for cash. Any further cut to funding would be a catastrophe for our children. Yeah, it looks like numbers are falling, and it has a picture here of a boy staring at a school wall, and the sign on there says school closed. Yeah, our education system is in a bit of a mess. So, strapped for cash, that's a phrase that you can use. You can say you're strapped for cash. It looks like the local cinema is strapped for cash, or a company is strapped for cash. I don't see why you would want to use it in business. I mean, in any business, you wouldn't be talking about the cash flow, unless, of course, you're a debt collector or you're working directly with the collection of premiums or money or something like that, but it's very common. And there we are, to be strapped for cash. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Prince Harry, because it looks like there's a move to try to get rid of him from the US. And I think Donald Trump has already said that if he becomes president, that Harry may be looking at an eviction notice. An eviction notice is when someone tells you that you have to move. A landlord, for example, or the government threw you out, something like this. And there we are. That's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Whatever you're doing, stay safe. It's very cold here, but they've told us the next few days are going to get warmer, which is good because I want to attend to my garden. And there we are. Have a lovely day. Bye.